The difference between a successful person and others is not lack of strength, not lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will. The difference between a successful person and others is not lack of strength, nor lack of knowledge, but rather a lack of will. And with that, Vince Biden's quote, I welcome you to Newsreel and Pensioners FM 106.7. It is a program where we consider salient issues from the newspapers. My name is Israel Adejumobi, and reading with me this morning.
A beautiful morning to you and welcome you to Newsreel on Pensioners 106.7 FM. My name is Belumi Adedoja and I have with me the Punch newspaper.
And with me this morning is the Nigerian Tribune. All right, we'll be starting first with the headlines before going into the details of the story. And starting with this on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune, it says how Nigeria will exit recession by federal government. 2021 budget lacks capacity to take Nigeria out of recession. House Committee. Recovery may be slow, experts as FG must return normalcy to forest market.
And taking headlines from the front page of the Punch newspaper, Naira plunges further, exchanges 483 per dollar over speculation.
And the federal government on page 3, federal government's petition CNN threatens legal action over NSAS protest.
Federal government threatens sanctions as 39,070 travelers shun coronavirus test. Federal government accuses travelers of presenting fake test results, dodging 19 isolated, treated. And that statement is from CDC. We have global surge. Government warns against non-essential travels, says travelers may be stranded.
And on page 29 of the Nigerian Tribune, as British Parliament hears petition, UK government says it won't speculate on sanctions.
Here we have reps demand 50 billion naira airlines bailout, fare sectors collapse.
And this is about the fuel price hike. It says fuel price hike, strike last options, says NLC.
And here we have ACF lampoons Buhari over North insecurity. Gunmen invades ABU.
And this is on the COVID-19. Federal government advises Nigerians to suspend Christmas travels as 138 NYC members test positive NCDC.
And here we have #answers UK lawmakers slam Buhari regime demand sanctions.
And on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune, court sends Ndume to prison over Mayina's absence at trial.
Here we have Nigeria's per capita income could fall to 40-year low. That's coming from the World Bank.
And on page 26 of the Nigerian Tribune, men destroying my farm, Falai writes a Motekun commandant.
Here we have Akeredolu Sachs Justice Commissioner names replacement. We have controversy over 4.6 billion naira payment due IPPIS, and that statement is from Fashola. And likewise, we have our Shola plans Oshun 10 years anniversary, Oyetola not invited. And finally, from Mayan, joint ownership, Lautech will be multi-campus varsity, says Makinde.
All right, so for now, we'll be taking a short break. The program is still Newsroom and Pensioners 106.7 FM. When we are back, it will be the details and the analysis of the stories. Yes, so welcome back. The program is Newsreel and Pensioners 106.7 FM, where we consider select issues from the newspapers. During the course of the break, our analyst walked in the person of Mr. Pius Insabe. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Israel. Good morning, Pelumi. Good morning, Olamide. And I say good morning to Nigeria.
Good morning, Mr. Pius.
All right, thank you very much, sir. All right, going straight into the details of the story this morning on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune, how Nigeria will exit recession, FG. Although Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, is optimistic that Nigeria will soon exit the current recession. Experts have said unless the government is resolute about taking the appropriate step, the recession may linger longer than anticipated. The minister hinged optimism on the government's fiscal reset and monetary interventions. This is even as the House of Representatives said the 2021 budget lacked the capacity to take the country out of the current recession.
And moving on to page 2 of the Pan newspaper, federal government threatens sanctions as 39,070 travelers shun coronavirus test. The presidential task force on COVID-19 on Monday said no fewer than 39,070 passengers who arrived the country did not pay for coronavirus test. The chairman of the PTF, Bas Mustafa, who indicated this at the PTF press conference in Abuja, also disclosed that some travelers presented fake documents on COVID-19 tests and other information. And that's on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. The sub-headlines under that we have 138 prospective NYC members test positive for COVID-19. The Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Chikwe Ekwazu, said 138 prospective members of the National Youth Service Corps tested positive for COVID-19. Ekwazu said the safe reopening of the NYC orientation camp across the country was successful. And can get details of the story on page 2 of the point. We also have federal government to inaugurate vaccine task force. All these details you can get on page 2 of the Punch newspaper.
All right, on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune, FG2 CNN reinvestigate report on Lekki Tollgate or face legal action. The federal government has threatened to take action within its law against the United States-based cable news network CNN if it does not do an exhaustive investigation into its investigative report on the Lekki Tollgate shooting by the Nigerian military. It will be recalled that a few days ago, CNN did a report entitled How a Bloody Night of Bullets Quashed a Young Protest Movement on the alleged shooting of NSAS protesters by the Nigerian military at the tollgate. At the Lekki tollgate. In the report, CNN showed how Nigerian military allegedly shot, killed, and injured some protesters in Lagos. Following the report, the Nigerian government, through the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, described the report as untrue and inciting.
Okay, moving on to page 11 of the Punch newspaper, still taking stories regarding #answers. We have UK lawmakers slam Buhari regime demand sanctions. President Major General Muhammadu Buhari retired for attack and intimidation of protesters who took part in the #answers demonstrations. They demanded sanctions on government officials and security agents such as visa ban, freezing of assets, and stopping the fund and training for the Nigerian police force. The debate was sequel to a petition started by Silas Ojo, which has gained over 200,000 signatures. You can get details of their story on page 11 of the Punch newspaper. #says UK lawmakers slam Buhari regime, demand sanctions.
All right, in page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune, fuel price hike, strike as last option. And Labour explains why it walked out of meeting with federal government. The organized Labour on Monday stated that the strike is the last option if other means fail in its engagement with the federal government over the recurrent hike in the price of fuel. Labour gave this position after it staged the walkout on the federal government following irreconcilable differences during a meeting at the banquet hall of the presidential villa Sunday evening. Addressing a joint press conference on Monday, the Nigerian Labour Congress (NLC) and the Trade Union Congress (TUC) explained why they walked out of the meeting. Deputy President of NLC, Mr. Joe Ajero, explained that the labor unions could not embark on industrial action immediately, as some people had expected, because labor does not operate that way. He pointed that the labor was already engaged in the government and was ready to negotiate, but warned that if every other means fail, strike is usually the last option.
Now moving to page 19 of the Punch newspaper, we have Nigeria's per capita income could fall to 40-year low, and that's coming from the World Bank. The World Bank said on Monday that Nigeria's per capita income could fall in 2020 to its lowest level in 40 years. The bank also raised concerns about the debt service costs being incurred by the Nigerian government. The country's director for Nigeria, World Bank, Mr. Shuban Chaburi noted that the decline in crude oil prices had drastically impacted government finances, the balance of payment and remittance from Nigerian living abroad. You can get details of that story on page 19 of the Punch newspaper. Nigeria's per capita income could fall to 40-year low. That's coming from the World Bank.
And this is on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. COVID-19. The Presidential Task Force PTF advises Nigerians to suspend Christmas travels. The Presidential Task Force PTF on COVID-19 has warned that a second wave of the pandemic is very much likely, advising Nigerians to suspend their Christmas travel due to the risks of contracting the coronavirus COVID-19. According to the news agency of Nigeria, NAN, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation SGF and the Chairman of the PTF, Mr. Boss Mustafa, gave the warning on Monday at the national briefing on COVID-19 in Abuja.
And yeah, you can get that same story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. We may review a policy if figures continue to increase. And we have ACF lampoons Buhari over North insecurity. Gunmen invade ABU. The Pan-Northern Socio-Political Organization, the Arawa Consultative Forum, on Monday berated the regime of President Muhammadu Buhari. Major General Muhammadu Buhari retired over the rise in insecurity in the north. The ACF, in a statement titled "The ACF Condemns Endless Killings in the North," issued by its spokesman Emmanuel Yahweh, urged the president to live up to his oath of office. Also on Monday, the president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Professor Biodun Guyemi, in an interview with the newspaper, linked the high level of insecurity in the country to the latest economic recession. ACF lampoons Buhari over North insecurity. Gunmen invade ABU. You can get details of the story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper.
All right, on page 26 of the Nigerian Tribune, Edsmen destroying my farm, Falai writes, Motekun commandant. Former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Chief Olufale, has written to the Commandant of Amatekan Corps in Ondo State, Mr. Adetunji Adile, alleging that herdsmen had been destroying his farm. In the letter, Chief Falai appealed to the Amatekan Commandant to save his farm and workers from further attacks.
All right, thank you. And now it's time for us to have our analysts do, analysis to the stories we've read out earlier.
All
Hello,
right.
Mr. Pius.
Hello, Pelumi.
Yeah, so let's start with the story on the increase in COVID-19 cases, especially the 138 prospective NYC members who tested positive for COVID-19. I remember it was last week where we heard that no member of the NYC, the report that no member on the prospective NYC members in the camp, rather, none of them tested to COVID-19. Now we're having a report that 138 of them tested positive to COVID-19. And also the report coming from the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 that we have 39,070 travelers avoiding the coronavirus test. And we have those that also presenting fake results. What do you have to say about all these reports?
Well, let me start with the NYC aspect of it. If you remember that day when you reeled out what the NYC said about its core members not testing positive to the virus, I had said that the NYC needed to go back and come back with something more realistic, because you cannot tell me that in the about 37 camps that we have across the country, you will not have at least 1 or 2 cases of the COVID-19. I even gave a very handy example that if you go to just Mokola here and take samples, you'll be amazed at what you will find. Because whether you like it or not, there had been interactions among Nigerians, and you cannot say specifically who it is that has this virus. It's not written in the face. And so we've been going about our normal businesses more often than not taking into cognizance the various preventive measures that have been, laid. And so it will be very, very, very difficult for anybody to come and convince me that you have a camp of about 37 camps, like I said, across the country, and you did not find a single NYSC member who tested positive. But we must give it to the NYSC again for at least ensuring that these tests are conducted before the prospective core members hit the camps or hit their various places of assignment. Of course, it's become a norm that before you have a gathering of people in the world today, such tests are conducted. So I think it is only good that we face the reality when we have to face the reality. And I thank God that eventually the NYSC has done the needful and has come up with that. On the other aspect of the federal government warning against Christmas travels, well, it's normal. Because if you look at the choice destinations of some Nigerians, well-to-do Nigerians who like to take vacations at a time like this, it is either Europe or the Americas. And these are the hotbed of the virus, Europe and the Americans. Of course, most of us don't patronize fellow African countries, where the virus appears to be minimal as we speak. So I think the federal government is only encouraging Nigerians to take the proactive step to avoid things that should be preventable, and it is up to everybody, as it is today in the world, to take caution. There will always be time to go on vacations. But as of today, what matters most is life, because at the end of the day, it is he who is alive that goes on vacation. In any case, if you are not healthy, how do you enjoy your vacation? So for those who have ears, I think they have to listen to the advice by the federal government at this point. Nothing stops us from having sound vacations, even within the country. There are places you can go in this country and you can make the best out of it, even better than what you have in some parts of the world. It's just that we here, we have this penchant for anything foreign, anything abroad and all that. So basically, to cut the long story short, I think the advice from the federal government is very timely. So it is up to Nigerians to stick by it and do what is necessary.
All right, and page C, so the Nigerian Tribune, we have story about recession. It says how Nigeria will exceed recession. Federal government says 2021 budget lacks capacity to take Nigeria out of recession. House of Reps committee. Yes, the federal government saying that we are going to come out of recession by the year 2021. But the House of Reps has said that the 2021 budget lacks capacity to do that. What do you have to say?
I want to agree with the House of Reps that the 2021 budget lacks what it takes to truly bring Nigeria out of recession that we're already in. Now, the federal government proposed a total budget of 13.08 trillion naira. And if you compare this budget, which we know that is paltry compared to the size of Nigeria and the population of this country and the level of infrastructural development that we need, and also the wastage that goes into governance. 13.0 trillion naira. It's an amount that the United States allots to maybe the defense sector alone. You understand?
Yes.
How much more a full country, a whole country like Nigeria. Now let's look at some of the budget parameters of the 2021 budget. The Nigerian government places its oil benchmark price at $40 per barrel. The daily production is estimated at 1.8 million barrels per day. And then the exchange rate of the naira is at 379 naira per dollar. That is the benchmark of the government I'm reeling out now, as far as the 2021 budget is concerned. Then the growth is projected at 3%. Inflation closing at 11.95%. Now, the total available funds to fund the 2021 budget is 7.886 trillion naira. That's a shortage of about 6 trillion naira, which will eventually come from borrowing. I don't know if you understand.
Yes.
You will need at least 6 trillion naira you need to borrow. That is aside the other borrowings that we've been talking about. And then our benchmark, if you look at the rate of the dollar today, the dollar as at today is about 483 naira as at today. And here we are pegging us at about 379 naira. It means it's not even realistic because as we speak, the value is even lower than where the federal government has placed it. So there are a number of parameters. The oil benchmark, which is put at 40 US dollars. If you see the way the price keeps going up and coming down, it's so unpredictable. Remember, there was a time it went as low as $11 per barrel. When it got to 30, even we were happy. We don't know what will happen tomorrow. So when you look at all these parameters, it gives room for fear that perhaps the budget is rather optimistic. At the end of the day, it may not achieve what it is set out to achieve. And if you look at what goes on overheads alone, I'm talking about running government plus pension and gratuity for what we have, 33% of that budget is going into all that. Overhead now, salaries are not even there. You understand? So if you have a budget that 33% is already going into running the government and pension and gratuity, it's obvious that it cannot give you what you should be looking at. And what does a budget look at? One of the things is capital expenditure, infrastructural development. You understand? And there are various sectors in the country. So if you put all these things together, it is obvious that the budget is optimistic, like I said, and it may not achieve what it is set out to achieve.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Pius. There's this story on page 2 of the Pan newspaper. CF lampoons Buhari over North insecurity. Gunmen invade ABU. Sometimes ago, it was reported that 9 students of ABU were abducted, and here's another report of another abduction, from the north, from that same university. And according to report, a whooping ransom amount of 270 million was, paid to get this students back. What do you have to say about this continued abduction, especially now that it's going to university, the industrial action by ASU? What do you have to say about all this?
I don't know what to say about all this. I don't know how to tie it down, except to say that to continue to renew our calls for a more stringent action, a more purposeful action in tackling insecurity in the country.
Mr. Pius, by call, what do you mean? Because right now, what we have is a call, and calls have been made so far.
Well, there is somebody who has been given the responsibility of securing this country. The chief security officer of Nigeria is the president and commander-in-chief. And that is why he is in control of the defense. He is in control of the police. And the way the country is structured, he is in control of almost all the other paramilitary security forces that we have. I think there are a number of factors you could look at, which we have, it's become like a broken record. These are things we've been saying for years. Do you know for how long we've been calling for the sack of the current service chiefs? We've been calling for it, but the president seems adamant. For him, he is achieving results. But if this is how to achieve results in a country when it comes to security, then we are in for it. Because people are being killed on it. These are the ones you get to hear. Maybe journalists stumbled on it and he had to report it. What about the ones that go on in hinterlands where you don't have journalists? Every day, people are being kidnapped. Just look at what happened in Nasarawa State a couple of days ago. The chairman of the All Progressives Congress was traced to his home, taken out. And then on Saturday, he was taken out. On Sunday morning, his corpse was found just close to his home. So all of us are living in borrowed times. That's just the truth. It is the grace of God that is keeping us. Obviously, the security system in this country needs a lot of rejigging. Is it about funding? Is it funding that is the problem? Is it personnel in terms of strength, numerical strength? Is it in terms of capacity of the leadership of these security agencies? Somebody needs to sit down somewhere and analyze these issues and take a decisive step. But these are the things that we are not seeing happen. Instead, innocent Nigerians, armless Nigerians, defenseless Nigerians are the one who are being victimized. The same resources that you would have used to tackle insecurity, use it to victimize the innocent people and the defenseless people in the country. That is what we see. So the point here is that until the government, starting from the commander-in-chief, and of course, our governors, who are more like ceremonial security chiefs, until they become more purposeful and they decide that they want to end insecurity in this country, things will keep escalating by the day. It is not, I'm not being a prophet of doom, because we are all victims. You can't sleep with your eyes closed. You can't walk on the streets without thinking of the possibility of being kidnapped. Maybe because you are able to earn 2 square meals. There is a neighbor somewhere who has not seen a square meal, and if you earn 2 square meals, to him, you are a big man. So the things are getting worse by the day. We can only hope that the government, because you and I cannot do anything, we can only give information, like the police will always say. You understand? We can only give information, which we do it directly or indirectly. But the execution and the implementation of security strategies to curb insecurity in the country lies within the arms of the government. There is nothing anybody can do about it. You are not authorized to carry a gun, except perhaps to protect yourself alone. So these are issues. At the end of the day, we can only hope that our government do what is right. There is no solution that does not have, there's no problem that does not have a solution. There's no challenge that doesn't have a solution. That is why you are elected in the first place. You understand? You were elected because this government particularly was elected. One of the reasons it was booted at was because the Jonathan's government was failing in the area of security. And there's no way you can have a good economy without a sound security. That's why our farmers can no longer go to farm. And the implication is that you won't have sufficient food. And so it will affect the cost of food in the market. Look at what happened recently in Lagos, the massive destruction just in a day of violence across the country. Look at what happened. It's all part of the insecurity that we are talking about. So the government has a lot of role to play, and it starts on the table of President Muhammadu Buhari.
All right, so the program is still News, Real and Pensioners 106.7 FM. Don't forget, our listeners out there, that you can be a part of today's discussion by calling the studio lines. The number to call is 0908 111 1067, 0908 111 1067. And you can also call 0808 010 1067, 0808 010 1067. All right, so going to page 3, John Tribune, as the federal government threatening the Lekki toll gate, and the federal government says that they are going to sanction CNN. Should this be the priority at the moment?
Well, if the federal government has a case to prove that CNN did a damaging report an unverified report, a biased report, and irresponsible report, in the words of the Minister of Information. Well, he has a reason to call to take any action he wants to take. But the organization in question, I mean the media organization in question, has insisted that it stands by its report. And Nigeria, but the Nigerian authorities have not given us reason to think that what CNN did or any other media organization, including some Nigerian media, you understand, is anything far from the truth. They've not given us reason to think that along that line. Because if you look at the testimonies of the military, for example, it's been self-countering all the way. You started by denial that there were no shootings. I mean, there were no military presence at that place in the first place, that you didn't have military presence. You left that, and later on you said, yes, we had military presence, but they were sent there they were asked to come by the Lagos State governor. And then you want to question, since when did a governor have power to deploy military or to order the deployment of military? Since when in our constitutions? In our constitution. You left that one. You said, okay, they were there, but they used blank ammunition. But now the latest is that, oh, they were there with both live and blank ammunition, but they did not deploy the live ammunition. It's only the blank ammunition that they deployed. So they've not even given us reason to think that what the likes of CNN and other media organizations have said is disputable. So until the government itself comes out with a clear position to convince Nigerians and the world, this time around, it's even gone beyond Nigerians, because the whole world seems to be interested in this matter. As I speak with you, the United Kingdom is debating sanctions on Nigeria on this particular matter. So you've not convinced us enough that CNN is lying, that other local media organizations that reported this thing were lying. It's just like the US president, who has refused to concede defeat, but has not provided any evidence to the contrary that he lost the election. That is exactly what the Nigerian government is doing. You can harass the Nigerian media for all I care, but you also want to start harassing international media. You do that to your own detriment. It has come to a point where the government just has to eat the humble pie and do what is necessary. If that the government had come out from day one, what happened? The commander-in-chief should have come out and, give an order from day one that those responsible for that act should be fished out and dealt with according to the laws. But we did not see all that happen. And that is why it is these denials and counter denials that are giving rise to all these shenanigans that we are seeing.
Okay, yes, you are there, listener. Yes, you can call. The number to call is 0908-111-1067, 0908-111-1067, or 0808-010-1067, 0808-010-1067. While you were speaking, you mentioned a bit on the debate from the UK. The UK lawmakers slamming Buhari's regime demands sanctions. I'd like to take a bit about on the discussions during the debate yesterday, and I'd like your take about it. A member of the parliament for Chipping Burnett constituency said, and here's a quote: I believe the petitioners have a credible case for the imposition of individualized imposition sanctions such as travel bans and asset freezes. She said the UK government must explain the role of the government in training security agents who end up abusing the rights of Nigerian citizens. And we have another MP there saying that the Nigerian government says that it has disbanded SARS, but the corruption and brutality of the security forces continues. the Nigerian government's violence against its own citizens appear only to be intensifying. What do you have to say about this rise, this concern from the UK, and comparing it with what we have here, you know, what we have at our own end regarding this issue that's going on in the country?
The fact is that truth is sacrosanct. You cannot hide it. It will only take time, but the truth will definitely come out. Even if it is covered up at the end of the day, truth remains sacrosanct. Now, the good thing here is that whatever happens, the world is watching. That is just the good thing about it. The world is no longer like before, where you could do certain things in your closet and you think you can just get away with it. No matter how long it takes, I want to think that justice will definitely prevail. So the bottom line is that the world is watching. Remember, the president-elect of the US, if this incident happened, the Lekki shooting happened on the 20th of October, on the 23rd of October, Joe Biden condemned it. We don't know the action he will take when he becomes the president of the United States and some other countries like that. But beyond all that, even as a country, do we need people outside our country to tell us that what is happening is truly bad? Do we need people to tell us that it's an indication that we have lost our conscience when innocent young people who came out to make demands defenselessly, sensible demands for that matter, are being harassed and allegedly killed for just causes? Where does that happen? Where does that happen? So we don't need anybody to tell us the truth. We know the truth. But most times, the reality is that we don't like to accept the truth. We politicize everything, including the truth. And you don't run a nation that way. You don't run a nation that way.
All right, this is on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune. It says, fuel price hike, strike is the last option. Here is the Nigerian Labour Congress planning to go on strike.
Can we forget about the Nigeria Labour Congress and talk about more serious things? Is it possible? No, now that's the truth. Because even among members of the labor movement, they believe that labor has been compromised. We all saw it. There was supposed to be a mass action by labor on the 28th of September against the initial hike in petrol pump price, against the senseless increase in electricity tariff. But just when Nigerians were gearing up to throw their weight behind organized labor, what did we see? A compromise that even most strong members of the labor movement were against. And so you now wake up to be telling us now that you are going back to negotiation table. Over what? Leave us to our fate. I mean, we could talk about other maybe civil society organizations, but definitely not organized labor. I'm sorry to say, because they took Nigeria for granted, and it is time for Nigerians to begin to take them for granted.
Okay, moving now to page 9 of the Punch newspaper, we have we will end fish importation in 2 years, and that's coming from the federal government. The federal government has declared its plan to end fish importation in the next 2 years, saying it has already ordered fish importers to consider farming and production locally. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Sabo Nanono, while speaking at the 35th annual conference of the Fisheries Society of Nigeria in Abuja on Monday, noted that the regime led by President Major General Muhammadu Buhari, retired, has initiated and was implementing programs, especially in the agriculture sector, to diversify the economy. Okay, so Mr. Paz, I want your take on this. We know what the experience was like for Nigerians when the importation of rice was banned, and now we are looking at the next 2 years, looking at putting an end to the importation of fish. How feasible do you see this, and how convenient would it be?
You see, these are just, you see, when you appear at a forum, you will definitely need to have something to say. That's the way I see our I mean, people holding offices. I don't like to call them leaders because they don't talk like leaders. At that forum, I wasn't there. I've not even read the story. But did he give us bit by bit strategies that have been put in place to ensure that in the next 2 years from now, we stop importing fish? How many government-owned functional fish ponds do we have in the country today? How many? I mean, government-owned functional. Those are the key words. They had been there in the past, even here in Oyo State. We know that even Oyo State as a state has fish ponds. But how functional are they? And the same thing cuts across states, local government, and even the federal government. You have a lot of young people roaming the street without jobs. And you have an initiative as fantastic as having to end importation of fish in the next 2 years. But we don't have young people being engaged in modern fish farms. The same thing we're talking about rice. Look at the consequence today. How much are we buying rice? Because you say we should not import, yet your production capacity is very low. So the effect is that the little that is available, the demand will be high. And it is you and me that will end up paying through the nose to get it. And the after effect is hunger. So these are the kind of things that when you look at times, you wonder, is it that our country has gone so low that we don't have thinkers and policy makers and policy implementers again? Time was, even those of us who are young, we met it a little when things worked in this country. Those people that made things work in this country, where are they? Who were they? Which other Nigeria did they come from? Is it the same Nigeria that everything appears mediocre today that they all came from? We cannot think again. We cannot implement again. All we know how to do is talk, and talk. The bottom line is that it will take the grace of God for what the minister is saying to come to pass. But if it so does, good luck. I will also be a beneficiary. I want to eat fish, good fish for that matter.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Pius, for being on the show today. We sincerely appreciate you for being here.
Thank you so much.
All right, that'll be all on today's edition of Newsreel, reaching you from Pensioners FM 106.7. My name is Isreal Adejumobi. Until next time when we meet, stay blessed and have a great day.
And my name is Belumi Adejoja. Have a lovely day.
There is that radio station that cares about the people. Looks out for the missing here among us.